Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to keep up to date with the community Flat Earth Debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and join the Flat Earth Debate forum to keep up to date with the community Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. I'm about to set up for the live show, so I'll pass you over to the panel and you can enjoy the dulcet tones of whoever is in there while I set up for the next live show.
Maybe there's like an oil rig or something, I don't know. But then, you know, you can measure the distance. They have laser pointers where you can actually also get the distance, which is pretty accurate. But how far it'll go, I don't know. But and this doesn't have to be equal. It doesn't have to be middle of the lake. What you can do is you can, as long as you know the angle and you know the distance, you can figure out the distance here.
All right.
So
deduce it Pythagorean.
yeah.
Using
Pythagorean.
Yes, exactly that one.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? The other idea is you can just go from the top of a structure, get a laser, point it, and have a mirror at this edge angled over to another side of the area. So basically, you just get one laser and you reflect it off here, and then you can get those angles as well.
I have a better proposal because lasers, well, there's issues with lasers. FE Core has found out, like they disperse and all that. What if you just used long ropes or cables? Because then you have these fixed distances on the ropes, on the actual pole, and then you could do it pretty quickly.
Erwin, you have sag.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's going to be.
It would have to be
I'm
like
dropping out,
tension
ladies and
cables,
gentlemen,
like
if anybody wants to comment.
Of course.
like
Well,
in
and
those
also-
tall radio towers where they have like just a big long skinny tower and then they have all the tension cables.
Exactly. Or you could use something like that on whatever scale to Pythagoreanly measure out the surface of the land and how much curve is there.
You're still going to have issues with the weight of the whatever cable you're using because it's going to sag. I mean, even those tension cables probably have a certain level of sag to them. So you would probably have to figure out, if you did use that, how to figure out to compensate when that sag occurs. You know?
Right.
So I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea, but that's you got to overcome those issues.
Yeah, logistically, anytime that you're trying to measure curvature with like actual physical things like cable or wire, you have to go to such a distance that it's really hard to eliminate that.
There's an easier way. You can get a spirit level and attach it to a gyroscope, measure a building's right angle towards the ground, and then take a road trip and go like 200 miles in another city and measure another building so they will be parallel to each other.
Hey Rebel, how you doing?
Hey guys, doing great.
Yep. A physical gyroscope.
Attached to a spirit level. It should work.
Right. Yeah, there's still a lot to be figured out with actual physical gyroscopes. And it's kind of tough though to do it right, because there are complexities with gyroscopes, as like things like sudden turn and everything does alter the orientation a little. And yeah, that's like pretty much the only true difficulty with that. But yeah, it can be done. And I think some people have done so, and on the other hand, some baller seems to have been doing some trickery of their own. Because yeah, it is easy to mess with the evidence. Basically, like, okay, you're putting it in a truck, and you say, "Oh, I'm moving 50 miles away," and then just park it slightly on a hill. It's so easy to fool people with if you wanted to do that. That's the tough part about it. Because I think that some ballers have done that, actually, have used gyroscopes, say, okay, in my truck, and then I move over way to there, and look, now it's in a different orientation, while not actually showing the outside of the truck. So it's very sneaky.
Yeah, but that's why I need to attach a spirit level for the gyroscope. So
Right, they didn't. But yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way to overcome that. Indeed.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and join the Flat Earth Debate forum to keep up to date with the community Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, then simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Rebel, Paul, Karen B, Aben, Deanne, Chocolate Saying, Arwin, and Andrew. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Hello.
what's up?
A nice
Bit
diverse panel. We'll go through a bit of housekeeping. Let's see how quick we can keep it. Any signs of Earth curvature?
No.
Absolutely no evidence whatsoever of any Earth curve. Only a little bit of obstruction at the atmosphere that everyone, Jose, thinks is Earth curve.
But yeah, Jose, don't think childish things like water curving.
I think the phrase is any obstruction's curvature, right?
About axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
No axis.
No evidence of an axis, no.
rotation.
No.
I'm looking for the axis.
About scientific evidence of gravity.
Aberration.
They've got gravimeters apparently, and gravimeters little numbers that are measured to 6 decimal places according to Walter Bistlin. And of course, it's probably the case that there is something out there that measures gravity to, or measures something to 6 decimal places. But my question is, well, how are you going to prove that it's the thing that you tell us that it is? Because we know there's lots of energy up there, lots of electricity as well. Perhaps there might be some kind of current flow that's going into the Earth, and we're part of it. And maybe you're not measuring gravity at all, but you believe it that you are.
Exactly. Like, how would you know that you are varying, that it is gravity if you can't actually vary it? Just
if you
detect
put a little
something.
label, on the machine that says gravity meter, right?
Yeah.
The machine beeps. Well, there you go. You just proved gravity. There you go.
Sure. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No.
Mm-mm.
What about the distance to the sun? Any evidence of that?
We'll have none of that.
There is distance to the sun.
There is no distance to the sun.
Apparent distance.
No,
There is, we just
not
don't
even
know.
apparent.
Yeah, not even apparent.
I give up. No distance.
What do you mean by that? No distance to the sun, Armin?
Well, for that to be something, you'd first have to actually confirm that it is a physical thing. And we only get apparitions. We only get the apparent sun disk, how it feels to us, how it looks to us, and then the behavior when you move over the earth or in the direction of the sun, and then you figure out that's gonna move right with you. And that's
Right.
not something that physical objects do when you try to approach them, for
Right. So
example.
anytime I hear that question, I'm presuming that we're assuming that the sun is an object, and given that, we still don't know the distance.
Right. Well, they have to assume it's a physical object first before they can determine the distance. That's the joke. It's another presupposition.
Yes, but I mean, I think you're making it a bit complicated, in my opinion, by saying
Yeah.
that we don't
I
know.
love it. I love doing that.
Would it
It's
be
kind of
more
throwing us off. It's throwing me off as well.
would it be more simple to just say it is a physical object, Rebel?
I think we can leave it at that. We can argue, and I totally understand the validity of that point. Just for the sake of housekeeping, we'll presume the sun is an object, and we still don't know the distance.
Why?
No,
What?
let's
Sorry.
not do that. That's the whole point.
Why would we do
Yeah,
that?
I agree.
Why
Let's
would we
not
do that?
presume it's a physical object at all. Let's prove that it is tangible, physical. We can touch it, smell it, and I know we can't touch it, but let's prove that it is physical first.
Shout out to Colin Turner for the super chat. Really appreciate your multitude of support, if that's the right terminology.
But
yeah, that's why I
to
phrased
get-
the question the way I did, Rebel. Would it be easier to just say it's physical object? Yeah, it is if you've got a lot of presuppositions about it being a physical object. Much easier if we just agree to that.
Right.
I suppose so, yeah.
Let's take a short tour and as to how that presupposition comes into being. Because first you have to presuppose that the Earth is a sphere, and then that the heavenly bodies, including the sun, moves around that sphere in certain angles. And then you can try to triangulate with these presuppositions that it is at a certain distance. And that is how the distance of the sun comes into being, presuppositionally.
Yeah, but very important part of the equation is Pluto with the dog on it. Because the dog just runs around the solar system and makes
Right.
a mess of it.
Okay, if you're going to send this into fast, I'm going to move on. Any evidence that we can have a gas pressure without a container?
Not yet.
I think this is the biggest one against the ball. It's not okay to say that we live in a vacuum of space and that we've got a gas pressure if there's no membrane between the two of us to create the gas pressure. There's got to be something that the gas is bouncing off to create the pressure. Now, I've seen numerous explanations, gravity and thermal energy loss reduction, and then right, let's prove it. Let's demonstrate it. Let's show that this thing is possible. Otherwise, it's bullshit. It kills their model many times over, and we're going to have to keep beating the drum about it and asking them to prove it and point out to people that they cannot prove in any way that there's a gas pressure within another like a vacuum. And we know that we have this so-called force, this gravity thing that they tell us that we've got. But why is it that we can't demonstrate that there is a gas pressure in a different, why can't we have a pressure differential when we've got the gravity to play with? It should be the case that they can use the gravity of the Earth, create a gas pressure differential, and demonstrate that this is possible. And it isn't. We have a dynamic atmosphere that's influenced by the sun that creates that dynamic movement, pressure movement. But how do you demonstrate the gas pressure without a container? And it just kills their model so bad it's unreal. But they just go la 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 la, not listening, and then focus on the 15 degrees argument instead, which is basically, yeah, they'll focus on the first part of the sentence, but they'll ignore the second part, the actual physics bit, won't you? You'd rather go for the gotcha against Bob rather than deal with the physics that conflicts afterwards. Dishonest.
But there may still be some presuppositional way out of there that I've conceptualized, and I wonder if they're going to consider doing that. Because, yeah, if other forces could somehow keep gas pressure opposing to a lower gas pressure, yeah, by using a non-physical barrier, but an energy-based barrier, then it could somehow sort of be fixed if you presuppose that it's there. So I keep on saying it's not the end of it. It's not the end of it. But yeah, if you want to prove it on Earth, yeah, ooh, good luck.
Next.
What are you talking about, Arwen? Just go outside. There you go. That's your proof.
Yeah. Knobheads. You can't have gas pressure without a container, because as conspiracy cats keep saying, without the balloon, there is no pressure. Well, that's really pertinent, because we have the pressure. So where's the balloon? We have to have something to create the pressure. So where's the pressure coming from? How is it here?
Well,
I think the other way to explain this would be for the ballers to explain how, if we lived in a pressurized environment, how could we tell that we were living in a pressurized environment, i.e., inside a container? How could we tell that we were inside a container if we lived in it? Because that would match what we see.
By leaving it.
Because the thing is, you've got a column of air above you. Let's change the medium, right? Let's say it's not air because it's difficult to envisage. Let's say the column of water. Let's say the column above you is water. When you put in, say, a meter of water, you're going to feel it. Let's call it the size of your shoulders, however big your shoulders are. Let's call it a meter's worth of water that fits on top of your shoulders. You're going to feel that meter. Let's make it 20 meters of water, and you're going to feel that a little bit more, aren't you? It's going to be quite prominent. Stick a couple of miles in there, and then you're going to feel that weight's going to start making you tired pretty quick because it's going to weigh a lot. And then by, I don't know, 35 miles, whatever the height is before they get to so-called space, you've got all that weight on top of your shoulders in water. So that in itself creates that pressure differential. It's just gas. So you are going to get a pressure differential in gas inside a container by virtue of the weight of the gas above you, because there's that much of it. There's loads of it. We're breathing it. So it is like a fluid. They describe the atmosphere as a fluid. It's the same as water, just doesn't weigh as much.
Well, the funny thing is about the gradient is that only really works after an equilibrium has been found of the total gas pressure within the container. It's a very basic concept that's constantly being overlooked. But yeah, even with that, might not be over yet. But
that's a lot of the comments I get on that video too, is if we're inside of a container, then how come the pressure isn't the same all the way up to the top?
Because of the weight of the gas above us.
It's because of relative density. It's relative density.
Yeah.
It only happens once an equilibrium is found.
See, that's what they keep asking for, is show me a pressure gradient inside of a container, which I actually found evidence of that.
Yeah, can be done, definitely.
Can you give us that evidence in a moment? I just want to do a quick shout out. Shout out to Deefa and NASA for the super chat. Thank you very much indeed for your support. Really appreciate it. Tell us all about it, Karen.
Okay. Well, I hold on one sec. There's a video that I'm sure you guys are familiar with Cody's lab. He actually made a video about something called Dalton's law, which is it's a Dalton's law of partial pressures. Right, so that's basically talking about a pressure gradient inside of a container, that you can have partial pressures inside of a container. And so he made a video. Let me see if I can find it in my history here.
Dalton's law, Wikipedia. In chemistry and physics, Dalton's law, also known as Dalton's law of partial pressures, states that in a mixture of non-reacting gases, well, we know that the atmosphere is non-reacting noble gases, right? Or at least most of it, some of it at least, the total pressure exerted is equal to the sum of the partial pressure of the individual gases. This empirical law was observed by John Dalton in 1801 and published in 1802, and is related to the ideal gas laws. All right, so it says, let me read that again. It says the total pressure exerted is equal to the sum of the partial pressures of the individual gases. How can you have individual gases if they all mix?
I
Well,
think you're
could it
talking
be-
about separation of elements here.
Sorry, I
But if
talked
you
over
mix,
you.
I thought,
I talked over Rebel. Can you just repeat that, Rebel? Sorry, I talked over you.
I'm assuming they are talking about separation of elements.
And also,
you can't have
wouldn't-
separation in a gas, can you?
well, it depends on
You will have, I'm assuming, and I'm not an expert, you probably will have layers of certain elements within the atmosphere that are heavier than the others. So they will just stack themselves up just like any other elements.
Yeah, but what you're implying there is that the gases are immiscible, and I'm not entirely sure that they're immiscible. I think that might be the odd one or two examples, but I think it's possible that they're all miscible and they all mix. I'm a bit confused, Karen. What have you found out in terms of this thing? How did you get to it, and what was your conclusion?
Okay, well, I'm trying to find this spot. Okay, hold on one sec. I can find this spot in the video. But basically, he takes two gases, two different gases. Hold on. Let me screen share.
See, to be honest, if you think about helium and hydrogen, I don't see how they could ever sit as miscible with the other gases, because even though there's no, even though they're able to flow in between each other, they're too dense and too like not dense. So I don't even know. I don't get how they could be like not separated. I don't know how. I'm messing this up. What I mean is, I don't see why the helium wouldn't rise to the top and sit there like a layer in a cake for the gas, for the lower gases, the heavier gases, to sit towards the bottom like a layer of cake. But apparently they mix, and I'm confused as to how that's possible when they are denser. There must be a concentration of more dense gas matter at the bottom by virtue of that fact. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it doesn't do it that way.
Well, gases spread out a little bit more than liquids.
You also have a
Anthony,
thought.
check the link in the group chat. Last one.
And also, if you think about it, I mean, our atmosphere is very dynamic. It'd be like constantly, constantly shaking up a vinaigrette bottle or Italian dressing bottle, where you're constantly keeping it mixed up. So eventually, if there wasn't that dynamic flow, you probably would eventually have gases settle in. If they're roughly the same density, they would stay mostly mixed most of the time. But if there's no air current whatsoever, it would seem like it might settle out to different layers.
Okay, well, can I show you guys this then? And you can tell me what you think.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so basically he's built this contraption here where it's got a pressure gauge on one side and a pressure gauge on the other side. And in the beginning of the video, he pressurizes one side to a certain amount and then the other side to a certain amount. And then he's got this valve in the center here that that closes it off. So it's got a hard barrier between it, and then he'll open the valve, and then you'll see the pressures on the pressure gauges even out once he opens the valve. So here he's got these clear tubes on the bottom, right? And so this side has one type of gas in it that's liquefied, and this other side has another type of gas that's liquefied in it. And so he pumps them up, pressurizes them to different pressures.
The valve's closed at the minute, right?
Right. It's closed at first, so they're different. Okay. So one side's got propane, the other's got something else in it. I forget what it is. But so here he shows the pressure. So the propane's like it's like 125. This one's at about like 65 before he opens the valve. And then you can see the liquid levels right here, right? So they're liquid up to a certain level. So then he opens it, and then the valves immediately equalize, right? So then what starts to happen is these liquefied gases start to not become liquid anymore and turn back into their gaseous form, and they start to fill up the space in the container, right? But there's not enough space in the container for it to go all the way back to gas. So after a while, he mixes it to hurry up the process. So then after a little while, the liquid level goes down. See, now the liquid level, after it's all, completely equalized out, the level is down super low. They're about half of what they were when you started, but you still have it all inside this container. So that right there, that to me looks like that's a pressure gradient inside of a container. So you have some of the gas has turned back into gas and is filling up the available space. And since there's not enough space for it to all go back to gas, there's some of it remains a liquid at the bottom. And that's basically what's, I mean, to me, that looks like that's what's happening in our
It depends on what they mean when they say pressure gradients, because you're right. At the bottom of that test tube, I'm going to call it a test tube, it might not be, but at the bottom of the test tube, you're going to get a weight of liquid of whatever that is above you. And at the top of that test tube, where you're in the gas, then you're going to get a totally different reading, because the pressure is different there. You haven't got the fluid around you. So it is demonstrating a pressure variance in that system, I agree. But what they will say is, no, you've got the gauge at the top. Look at the two gauges at the top towards the end of the video. So if you can get it where the gauges are on screen, right there, they will argue that, the two pressures have equalized and you haven't got a pressure gradient. You've got equalization, which we don't have in the atmosphere. Well, I would say, well, that's only true if you've only got two gases in this case. If you have 12 gases, 6 gases, 4 gases, you're going to get different results. And although the overall pressure might be the same, you've still got that density gradient, which is the heavier stuff goes to the bottom and the more light stuff has to go up into the chamber to be the gas pressure itself. But again, it's all contained. Can't have the gas pressure without containing it. But remind yourselves of when you get the sulfur hexafluoride, which is that gas that's 4 times heavier than air, you need to fill it up in a fish tank, right? If the gas filled the available volume the way that their model tells us it does, then that sulfur hexafluoride must fill the available volume. It should become immiscible with the air that it sits in. It shouldn't be able to be immiscible, and it shouldn't act like a fluid. So I'm confused as to, I mean, it's probably me being ignorant, but it seems to me that if you've got the gases, and say you've got 6 gases all mixed in together, it seems to me that if you leave them to settle, they would separate out and be immiscible until you mix them all up. Might be wrong, shoot me if you want, but the point is that if you can have sulfur hexafluoride in a fish tank and it'll gather there and it won't fill the available volume because it's too heavy, that indicates to me that you do get separation of gases. And what we're being told by when they've got these vacuums and they let a bit of pressure in there, it doesn't fill the available volume the way we're told. It must be the case that the pressure goes in there, the gas goes in there, but it's more dense than the vacuum, so it should pool at the bottom. In my opinion, that's what I think it would do. It would pool at the bottom, and that would give you the ability to separate out your gas layers, and therefore you would get a density gradient or a pressure gradient within a containment itself. Because I think the assumption is that because the gases are all immiscible, they all mix together and create like one, like it's kind of like one almost homogeneous, one gas rather than it's like a cake gas rather than the individual ingredients making it up. So what I'm getting at in a weird kind of way is that what they tell us is happening doesn't seem to be supported by actual science that does conflict with it, because you shouldn't be able to fill sulfur hexafluoride up with the fish tank if it's supposed to fill the available volume. Yeah, it's got the volume it's got there with the fish tank, but shouldn't it like mix with the atmosphere and become part of, and then it would be heavier because it would fill the room from the bottom.
Can I just draw this nonsense to a close because it's getting irritating? Right, so
yeah, it's hard, but
we live in a dynamic system, and the creation of the gases happens at the surface. It doesn't happen in the sky; it happens on the ground. So, where do you think the greatest concentration of gases is going to be? Anybody? Anybody at all?
On the surface.
Oh, shock horror! So, what do you think happens if you've got a continual production line of gases at the bottom, and obviously there's no production line of gases halfway up or at the top? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to have a concentration of gas at the bottom, less gas at the top. That's because we live in a dynamic system. It's not stationary. It's not something that's continually trying to find its equilibrium. It's in constant flow. You have cycles that are continually occurring. Well, these are what give us our pressure gradient.
Yeah, spot on.
Could it be that we're mixing perhaps density of elements and pressure? In other words, density varies, but pressure perhaps doesn't.
I don't think it's got anything to do with density. So what Anthony said in terms of the gas not filling the available space, well, no, that defies the second law of thermodynamics. It's trying to reach equilibrium, even, equal. Well, that's only true in a completely static, closed box with nothing going on. Well, we don't live in a static, closed box with nothing going on. Obviously, there's stuff going on all the time. It's constantly in flux. It's a very, very dynamic system.
Caused by the sun.
Right.
And
But
we also know that at night time, when the sun settles down, everything becomes like much, much, much less dynamic. Everything settles down, like temperatures cool off, everything becomes to a state of equilibrium. Imagine perhaps if we didn't have a sun, you could imagine it obviously being dark. I don't know whether it would be as atmospherically crazy as what they suggest in Antarctica in the, during when it's like the winter and they don't get sun at all almost. They just get a little like glimpse of light and it's continuously windy. I'm not sure whether that would be the case. To me, it'd just settle down and it would become equilibrium, not crazy dynamicness by virtue of the lack of sun. It seems to me that it would just settle down. It's the sun that causes the dynamicness.
in my experience, sun and moon both cause it.
Maybe.
But even though the sun's not there in Antarctica, it's still rotating. They're still going around. So there's still air currents that's occurring. So I don't know. I see what you're saying, but I'm still not quite sure that that may be the case. I mean, I know what you're saying, but just not sure.
I just dropped a link in the chat. It's called How to Make an Eternal Terrarium. So it's a plant in a light bulb that's sealed.
Right, so as soon as you stick a plant in it, you've got a dynamic system.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I said spot on when you summed it all up.
Well, I think that concludes the gas pressure without a container question quite concisely. Only took about half an hour. Excellent. What about a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No evidence. How do they know it's a core? How do they know it's the centre of a ball?
Impossible.
Don't they also
Deepest
say
hole,
it's
7 miles.
rotating?
Deepest hole, 7 miles. When seismology made its predictions, it got 4 of them wrong. They just don't know what's below certain points, and they can guess about it, but seismology made predictions that were all wrong, yet somehow they know how the centre of the Earth works. Really? Oh, and apparently it can only be interpreted if we live on a sphere. Well, given that it's an oblate spheroid, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, that kind of rules that idea out as well. It's nonsense.
So it's sort of pear-shaped, a little chubby at the bottom,
Yeah. So then seismology's out the window, right? Because that only works on a sphere, according to conspiracy cats.
Go on, Rebel. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with Anthony in regards to molten iron core. Complete absurd.
Yeah, so let me just reassert the science, right? The primary wave will penetrate liquids and rocks, but the secondary wave does not. But based on that fact, and that may well be true, the primary wave is the initial blast. So if you remember back to the Terminator movie, where John Connors or Sarah Connors having that bad dream about being on the other side of the fence, and she's looking through a chainmail fence. She sees the nuclear explosion and she sees the primary wave, which is the shock wave, and that's the one that kind of rips everybody's face off and whatnot. It's like destroys buildings and everything. That's the primary wave. The secondary wave is the slower one that comes behind it. It's like a tsunami, but it's all mechanical. That's the secondary wave. Now the primary wave, shock wave, the blast, it will penetrate liquids and fluids, but the secondary wave apparently does not. Well, if that's the case, you only need a small layer of water below ourselves, and then that's not going to be penetrating anything. But you could interpret that layer of liquid to be magma if you wanted to be. But equally, you could also interpret it to be water. And what do you know? When we done the Kohler super deep borehole and they dug 7 miles deep below the Earth's crust, what came out? Shed loads of not fresh water, but shed loads of water that they weren't expecting from the deep, plus a load of boiling hydrogen mud. Hydrogen? How's hydrogen down there? Well, maybe it's the decomposition of water somehow. Perhaps, maybe, don't know. But the point is they weren't expecting it. And they weren't expecting for all this water to be coming out from the deep, because it's only supposed to be down to a certain distance, because you get to a point where the water can't exist because there's too much pressure. So basically, it's nonsense. The whole thing's just not right. Doesn't fit.
Hold on a second. Are you saying that they're claiming they drilled below the Earth crust?
7 miles. No, not into the magma. No.
Right.
I'm saying that when they predicted what they would get when they started drilling based on seismology, they made 4 predictions. One was that there would be a transition layer of rock from one to the other, which turned out to be false. They did not predict, or they didn't predict that there would be water in great volumes, which turned out that was an unexpected thing. They didn't predict that there would be bacterial life at these depths either. That was another thing that they didn't predict, because they said it was too deep, and there's no light, and there's no way bacteria could survive. And the boiling hydrogen mud prediction turned out to be wrong. They weren't expecting any hydrogen to be down there, and that was oozing out of the hole. So
Right.
seismology didn't have a good day with the so-called super deep borehole. Yet seismology is the proof that we live on a sphere, and it's the only proof that we've got, and it couldn't possibly be any other way because seismology wouldn't work. Well, that assumes that you've got a layer of liquid that's magma underneath you, and that the reflection of light that you do get or don't get from the seismology is doing, not light, but sound, is doing what you think it's doing. But that doesn't mean that it only works on a sphere. It's just completely based on its subjective interpretation of the data that you're looking at. Which let's not forget, it's a needle, or like an earthquake thing that creates like ups and downs. I can't remember what it's called. Is it not Stenson? Can't remember. But my point is that seismology had a bad day with that Kohler super deep borehole.
I still have my question pending for any globehead that joins the show. I want to be told which direction is the molten iron core spinning, so I can take him apart.
Well, it has to be going with the rotation of the Earth, doesn't it?
Well, they'll get velcroed, like the atmosphere. So what happens after that? They'll cancel each other out.
The whole idea of spinning core is just ridiculous. I mean, where the energy would come from. It's just no matter how you look at it, it's just ridiculous.
Not just the energy though. Where is the fuel for that coming from? How is it still just burning down there when it's surrounded by all these miles, thousands of miles of rock?
Just imagine
How's
the
it getting
amount-
any fuel to burn?
Yeah, no, it's ever since that idea was introduced to me when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6. I distinctly remember it. They cut out picture of cross section of the ball. I thought to myself, that's bullshit. There's no way. Well, I was 6 at the time.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But they
Have you guys ever heard
can quantify it though mathematically. So they've, that's why you get the story of Theia depositing its molten iron core onto the Earth's, because within their timeline, the core of the Earth, if it was just through gravitational accretion formed in the Great Bombardment, then it should have cooled down by now. But they need it to be bigger, so they need an oversized molten iron core. So they have this whole just so story about Theia smashing into Earth at a glancing blow and depositing its core and the debris forming the moon. Well, that gives you this oversized, not yet cooled down molten iron core. That story, that just so story.
Yeah, it's a terrible story.
I was
And
always wondering.
all of that happened in vacuum of space. Right.
By the way, they also say, just a kind of a side note in terms of forming of the planets and whatnot, the coalescing gas and stuff like this to create so-called gravity. My question was always, how does gas coalesces in the vacuum in the first place? How does it become pressurized to form any sort of dense matter to then produce gravity? I mean, it's just no matter how.
Bending of space-time. Get with the times, man.
Aaron, Arwin.
Yeah, I had my turn. I had a little thought or two about the molten iron core. And
Arwin, what is bending the space?
It's a good
no,
point.
space-time and
You
it's
did,
gravity.
you did see? That's when you
But
take a
the-
trampoline and you put a bowling ball on it and it bends, and you put some balls on the trampoline and it follows the balls, and there you go.
Is
Bending
it
of space-time.
Is it math?
It's just inherent to the space. Come on, guys. This is not that hard.
Inherent from what?
Look, it's
Existence.
all very
If I can
complicated.
make my point, the molten iron core, I always thought, like, not even like magnetics or whatever, but if the Earth were a globe with a surface that's like hard, and there would be liquid core inside that's like relatively pretty big, then aren't we like subjected to flexing. Like, think of a water balloon. If you like push on it, the whole thing is gonna like warp and flex.
Nah.
And what's gonna keep it into that perfect
Have you never
bowl?
seen a-
Why? Like
you never
the
seen a-
slightest change of gravity or some impact is gonna like warp it. Like
You've obviously never seen a Cadbury's cream egg. If you'd have seen a Cadbury's cream egg, you'd know it's definitely possible to have a gooey, soft center.
Yeah, until the chocolate heats up, and then you're screwed.
Well, actually, I've got I don't know if you see my screen, but I've actually got. Have you heard of the raw and bull egg spinning experiment? Have you seen that before?
No, but
Rotten
go
egg?
on.
It's the raw egg, boiled egg spinning. Like a raw egg will not spin,
Yeah, I've seen it.
but a hard boiled egg will. And the reason being is because the raw egg is a liquid, where the hard boiled is more solid, or more like a solid. I just thought that was interesting. Go ahead.
The reason for this is that liquids cannot have a unified center of mass. That's why.
So is it molten have the idea of being liquid?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Exactly.
If it was a solid
Liquid
item,
hot
then it would be
magma.
okay.
I'm sorry, but it may happen before, but I don't know about it. Did anybody ever ask the globe head when discussing gravity and Einstein's gravity, what is actually bending the space?
Space, by definition, has no property.
The space-time.
It's a feedback loop. It's
What
a
does
feedback
bend it?
It's
What's bending
matter
it?
that bends the space-time, and space-times that then bends matter. Just
Well-
don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, just don't worry your precious little heads about it. It's all very complicated. Look, time dilates and things warp and get shorter as they go faster. It's all very complicated. You don't need to worry about it.
Exactly. Just go on.
In
with
our
it.
I trust. Oh my god.
And also, there's an idea of a Curie point of metals where they lose the magnetic properties. That doesn't seem to be getting through the heads.
Yeah. Anthony brought that the last time.
Yeah, but now they want to say that there's like a nuclear reactor inside the Earth that is the power that is generating the electromagnetic field.
Shout out
And
to
what-
Chris
How
Hunt.
many-
It's nice and handy, but none of it is proven, right? It's just a magic.
Yeah, shout out to Chris
Oh,
Monk.
of course.
He was the first person that presented that argument to me. I don't know if it's the same for Anthony, but certainly the first I heard that argument was from Chris Monk.
Which argument are you talking about?
I heard my name.
I was saying, where did you first hear the molten iron core argument?
Give me a minute. Let me have a think. No, it was way before Chris Monk. It was one of the first things that I ever looked into. Because, like, how do they know what's inside the Earth, right? That's one of the first things that I asked. And when you ask that question, they say, well, the deepest hole anyone's ever dug is the Kola super deep borehole, which apparently now has been superseded. There is a new hole that's been dug recently, and I think it was 2015. It's not that much deeper. It's almost the same, a little bit deeper, but not to write home about. Kola super deep borehole is still an acceptable authority. But for me, it was when I started because for me, I was researching that point, and when you realise that the deepest that they dig is that hole, and it wasn't credible evidence that that supported them when they got their thingies wrong, it kind of snowballed. So for me, it was one of the first ever things I ever looked at. I just didn't realize how important it was when I looked at it. I just realized it was an inconsistency, and therefore I need to have a little bit more of a look in it.
Where did they dig the new hole?
I'll find out
Neil
now.
deGrasse Tyson's head.
That's
Find
not
out
going to
now.
be that deep.
Sorry. Couldn't resist it.
Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson's just going to go there to drop his mic in it.
On Google, it's still saying Kola super deep borehole, but I think there's a newer one that's a little tiny bit deeper. Somewhat unusual about it. Leave it with me. I'll come back to you.
May I go over something with you guys?
Sure,
course.
unless it's totally off topic. If it's off topic, I want to round out housekeeping. But if it's on topic, go ahead.
It's about the International Space Station, the speed that it goes, how high it is. So
Unrelated. Okay, I'll round out
Okay.
housekeeping. I'll keep it quick and brief, and then we can move
Yeah.
straight on to that. No worries. Any evidence of the presuppositional R value? Any evidence of Earth radius, ladies and gentlemen?
No.
There's only evidence that it is a presupposition.
Yeah, we know it's a presupposition, Arwin. Thanks. There's plenty of evidence that they presuppose R. Yes, granted. Any
There we
evidence?
go.
Oh God, you're so pedantic. Right, that's it. That's the end of housekeeping. Arwin's ruined it for everyone.
House is clean.
Right, go ahead. So we're into begging the question, Eben.
Okay, so if you go to NASA's site, they'll say that the International Space Station orbits Earth at an altitude of 200 to 250 miles. For my stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and use 200 miles up that they are. And they go a very fast speed, 17,500 miles per hour. That's what they're saying. This is NASA on nasa.gov. So to give a reference, the speed of a plane goes around 550 miles per hour. Speed of a bullet goes 1,700 miles per hour. Speed of the International Space Station goes 10 times the speed of a bullet. And it's 200 to 250 miles high. So the supposed circumference of Earth is 24,900 miles. If you multiply that by how high it is, 200 miles high, you'll get close to 5 million miles circumference, and you divide that by 2 if you're going horizon to horizon. If that's what you see, 180 degrees, you get 2.5 million miles circumference. Now, if you divide that by the speed of the International Space Station in miles per hour, what we should see is the International Space Station taking 142.28 hours to go from horizon to horizon. Did I do my math right?
No.
One question: is it just me that noticed that? What's the escape velocity of the space shuttles?
You broke up. Can you repeat that?
Escape velocity is 25,000 miles per hour.
Compare it to the ISS speed now.
Oh shit.
How do
That's
they
17,500.
What? How do they slow down in space?
Just
So,
rocket
who the
boost.
hell knows,
That's-
man?
That's the
Hold on,
speed of the
just before
free
he-
fall
just
as
before he-
well. That's why.
Just before we all hijack Eben, I just want him to make his conclusions and point and what have you. Go ahead, Eben.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was clearing the way so that you could carry on.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with someone. So sorry.
Yeah, that's not how you discern the circumference. You don't multiply circumference by altitude. You need to do the radius by pi.
Okay.
I might have to retract that last comment. I don't know. I can't remember where I read it, but I'm sure I read that the Kola super deep borehole had been surpassed by fractions, but now I can't find it. So I'll retract that previous statement because I can't now find a citation for it. However, it's possible that the ISS is effectively going round a flat plane. Like when Arwin describes the Mobius strip for the sun, well, I'm kind of with that. I kind of see the idea that the moon and the sun could be on a Mobius strip. Forget about the sun for a minute. The moon could be tangible. It could be physical. It could be orbiting us, but laterally, not going around a sphere. In the same way that if you look at, oh shit, what's it called? It's called, what's it called when it's on that really cold strip? I know it's the Mobius strip, but the really cold
Quantum locking.
Yeah,
yes, quantum locking. I'm gonna, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to share my screen because it's fab.
But yeah,
Sorry, but my Mobius strip concept
Hold on, but
originally
hold on,
only
hold on.
devised
Why-
to
hold on, Owen,
account
just
for
1 second,
gravity,
Owen.
not
Just 1 second.
have anything to
Why
do
is
with
it that you get to presuppose it's a physical thing, Anthony, so you can spout flat Earth bullshit about what the moon is? I don't get it.
I don't know that it is. All I'm saying is that there could be a physical moon up there. Maybe not, but there could be.
Right.
And if there
I
is,
didn't do this to you last
what
time.
might-
I'm going to do it to you this time. It could equally be floating on unicorn farts, right? So this story, I was kind last time. I was like, oh, well, it's equally as valid as their bullshit presuppositions and just so story. But I don't get it. This has always confused me. Why the necessity? I'll put it up. So, yeah. There you go.
Why the necessity to speculate? Because there does appear to be something up there that looks kind of.
No, I think it's a classic case of physicality assumption bias.
I agree, Arwin.
I'm not against that. All I'm saying is that if it is physical and it is a flat plane, this is how the mechanism may work. I'm not saying it does work. I'm just saying that this does happen. We can see this.
Right, and I
Maybe
agree.
the
I
ISS
agree. But I have to give you both of those presuppositions, don't I? And then you're just so story. So what's the difference? That was my original question. Why would I let you do this and then pummel the living daylights out of a glowbed for doing it?
You can pummel me. I'm just saying that there is explanations on a flat plane for why we may have something physical up there that seems to be orbiting laterally rather than circumferentially.
Okay,
Yeah,
somebody get the scoops. Go
Okay.
ahead, Riley.
Okay, well, yes, Anthony's right. There are lots of just so stories out there.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with it because we're just talking. We're not really debating a globe head and, you know.
Yeah, and
not
I
going
am making
in
it
like
really
that.
clear that I'm spitballing. I'm not saying this
Yeah.
is definitely what we think it is. I'm just saying that there are other explanations that may be
That's
what we're looking at.
That's fair enough. I mean, I'll tell you why. Just because chocolate brought it up. The reason I've got a bee in my bonnet for it, chocolate, is because of I can't remember who brought it up on the last show, but basically, whoever the chap was that brought up the moon's atmosphere extending out, it's just another way of getting you to come up with just so bullshit stories, and start begging the question on their behalf, fighting about models, and I'll get to my point. The point being that if you've already got an answer, in other words, if the general consensus is the heliocentric explanation for what the moon is, what's the point in speculating, spitballing, and coming up with just so stories of our own, when if you just ask Joe Bloggs on the street what the moon is, he'll just parrot off the rhetoric. In other words, wouldn't it make more sense, rather than speculating, to first get people to appreciate that what we have currently is just a just so story? Because I'm nearly there. So
Sorry.
what I'm saying is the danger is that if you offer a pure just so story, and people are like information sponges, especially when they've been robbed of an explanation, they'll soak that up. They'll really, scrutinize it, give it their cognitive thought, and process it. And some people might even believe it, decide that is what the moon is because they need to have an explanation. And I just think we're overstretching our boundaries, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's fine to speculate, but I just think there's a much bigger task at hand, which is to say that expunging the current rhetoric, then you move on to figuring out what it is. But if you're up against everybody already having a current rhetoric, and then you present them with another just so story, you're not making any progress. In fact, you're stagnating. I just think the focus should be stamping the living daylights out of the current rhetoric for where it doesn't make sense. And that's obviously, that's going to not be very conducive to good, light-hearted conversation about what might be, which is part of the excitement. So I'm smiling because that's the joy of it, right? That's the joy of not knowing. You can speculate about what it may be. But on the other hand, it does cause damage.
Well, not if it's clear that you're speculating. And also, when Jose says it's just more logical for me to accept that the sphere just works, well, this is the other side to it. Well, there is an alternative explanation that may or may not be true, but at least it can be explained with something alternative rather than you got nothing. So it's like, well, maybe this is a piece of a jigsaw that eventually might form a model. Might not do. It might be wrong. But what I'm saying is, just because you've got a so-called working model that you can't demonstrate ever, for what people believe that it's there, does not make it actually any more or any less credible than spitballing for what else might be there. So I agree. I don't disagree. But on the other hand, I also see that the value to it is let people know about quantum locking, because quantum locking is a thing, and that might well be what we're looking at. Might not be, but it might be.
Maybe quantum locking may be a thing on a small physical scale, but to then move that up to a celestial scale, that's going to be a lot of presuppositions again.
I agree.
Just saying.
Not only that, you're going to have to still answer questions about angular momentums and stuff like this, because the speed increases the further it goes so-called south.
But on that bombshell, guys, I've got to drop because I've got to do something. So thanks for your time. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.
Cheers.
Right. See you
Later.
later.
Bye, Anthony.
Bye.
At least we got all the way through housekeeping. With about
Yeah.
8 minutes left on the live show.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nathan, in regards to even supposing alternative models, because not knowing just whether it's an object or not object, what forces are involved without us being physically present there and doing measurements is just pointless and just begging the question.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want us to be falling into making claims that we can't necessarily back up. No matter how clear you try and make it that you're just speculating, somebody will hold you to account for it at some stage. And it's like, well, why? Yes. Why weaken your overall argument? I'd love to be in a position where we can say, okay, people are now of the general understanding that we don't know what the sky is. At that point, the speculation should be rife. It will happen naturally anyway. But while we're in a complete minority, being censored, do we want the nonsense to leak out, the speculation to leak out, or the devastating destruction of the current nonsense, presuppositions, and just so stories? I'd rather it be the latter. That's just my opinion. Others may vary.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm down with the devastating destruction.
Because people are not comfortable, but for most, probably impossible to just simply not knowing. They need to have models, and that's where the weakness is. So.
That's all right.
Model envy.
I don't need a teddy bear model.
It's not an envy. It's just
to hold me
it's
at
a
night
fear.
while the globe is being destroyed. I just know what I know.
Arvin, I don't think it's
the
an
world
envy.
that I live in.
Can we get back to how desperate are globeheads right now?
Yeah,
I mean, they're just scared as hell. They're all over the place. They're more into flat earth than flat earthers are now. It's like,
Yep.
Thank you guys. Thanks for spreading it out. You're doing a great job, globeheads. Keep it up.
Yeah. Well, isn't the very fact that they're engaged in this conversation proof that they are slightly nervous as to what's going on? Because, if they're comfortable with knowing they live on a spinning ball in space, then why are you here?
No,
Why are you participating in this?
They just want to rail up and make this topic more more people aware of it, to feed on the consensus reality, right? The more people will ridicule it in their eyes, that's what asserts their viewpoint.
I think most of them are at this point just trying to gather more troops for their troll army to outnoise us all.
Well, that's what
that's what
at the
Rebel
same
just said.
time, having an army in front of your doorstep kind of draws the attention of everyone.
Yeah, the noise they make is just so good. They make that noise. Keep on going, Gobies. Keep on going.
I think it's the
We don't have any real science. We have all the science, but we won't show it to you because it doesn't matter. We just have it. Believe
I know what this is. It's a science crusade.
it. Yeah.
I think it's the virus that Agent Smith becomes at the end at the last.
I'm going to be that. I'm going to be that guy that just keeps getting on everyone's nerves. The guy in the cinema that tells you the plot.
Me?
No, me. So it's not. None of this is the fault of science or scientism. It's incorrect to blame this on science. So science being a narrow term, an empirical method. The problem is pseudoscience. So I'm going to be on Globebusters on Sunday, and Jaren, if you're listening, I'm really sorry. It's going to be a tough show for me because it's using this sword to chop globe heads off to the entertainment and amusement of flat earthers 90% of the time. Unfortunately, there's 10% of the time where I have to correct people like Jaren, which I do not like doing. And I don't care how you read that. Either way, he will blame science. This is the fault of science. Science says, etc., etc. And it's like, no, the distinction, and he's doing this anyway, so I'm not that worried because he's already identifying this himself. It's actually pseudoscience. So just with a small tweak to people like Jaren and anybody else for that matter's language, blame the real practitioners of nonsense, and they are the pseudoscientists. the people that have given us these extra scientific methods, plural, yeah, they're the ones that need to assert that what they say is true and real. So they're going to obviously try and deviate away from an empirical method if they can't apply it, and say that that's not needed, this extra method is the new method, the more modern method, the better method, because they need to assert their nonsense. Well, they are, by definition, the pseudoscientists, the ones that claim to be scientific, empirical, but not scientific, not empirical, just so stories and presuppositions. But they are the pseudoscientists. And I want to get to the point where people realise that science is what you were taught in school. It is the empirical method that we know and understand. It has driven scientific discovery and is not our enemy. Quite the converse. The problem is men, of course it is, it always is, who have hijacked this term to mean what they say. But they're not scientists, they're pseudoscientists. Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, is a pseudoscientist. He cannot apply the method. He only has observed phenomena and what he tells you. That's it. Comparisons, correlations, not science, not empirical. Well, of course, that guy's going to tell you that he's using a different method and you don't need the dusty old empirical method. Of course, that's what charlatans do. But let's call them what they actually are, pseudoscientists, not science. So let's not blame science for something it's not. We're reifying it when we blame it. It's just a method. You can't blame it for things, But we do it all the time when we say, this is because of science, people worshipping science. Well, nothing wrong with understanding that science is proving things and empirical. But when you've got a pseudoscientist practitioner telling you that they can prove something to you by asserting something about their observation of a phenomena, then you need to call them out on that. No, that's not science. That's just your word. I don't want to know what you have to say about it, priest. You're not a scientist. You've not performed the method. You've not proven anything empirically. So you are a pseudoscientist.
I agree.
That's a drop of mic moment, I think.
Yep.
Yes, well said.
A globehead listening? Globeheads, can you hear that?
Tap, tap. Is this thing on? Yeah.
Globeheads don't listen, they just wait for their turn to talk.
I don't know. I don't think they even wait their turn. They just talk over.
That's true.
There you go.
Any globeheads orbiting you around?
Well, on that stunned silence, it might be my opportunity to round out, at least for the live audience. So if you are watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. But to all of you watching in the live audience, a massive thank you for tuning in and hopefully sharing this live debate. Also, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you need something to keep yourself amused after this live stream ends, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. So, I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Well, we can get a false flag, fake alien invasion, like the last deck in the cards, or some bullshit type of cataclysm coming from a fake, non-existing medium, just to push the globe narrative.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Globeheads are now going big into this behind the curve documentary, so they wanna give weight to it. I've seen on YouTube last few days that all the debunking channels are getting onto it, how it's good and how it shows off what flat Earth is, and like the noise is just staggering.
Not an experiment.
Right, not an experiment. And it was, even if it was, it's an observation. It's not even, what they show isn't even a complete observation. There's no real data. It's just everything's inferred, and people are taking it like it's the truth.
Some people will start questioning it of that documentary, and I'm sure that this documentary will produce flat earthers. It will, definitely.
Actually, it has. Last night, during Mark Sargent's show, there was some people that showed up in the live chat that said that they had watched the documentary and they were here out of curiosity.
That's so beautiful. Oh, that makes me very happy, Karen.
Yeah.
Also,
And they weren't being nasty, they weren't being critical. They were just like, wow, they were asking questions and they were like, well, you people seem nice. Because we were being nice. We were like, oh, welcome. You know, and we just started talking to them.
Karen, that's how I got into flat Earth. I don't see myself as a really smart person, but I get stuff. I'm not that dumb. So I was so much into space and all this crazy shit that Neil deGrasse Tyson is talking about all the time. And I went and checked out a video of ESA, the European Space Agency, about them landing the Rosetta mission and so on and blah blah blah. And it was just keep on popping on the side. It's related the videos. You know, it was something to do with flat Earth. And in my desperate quest of finding the meaning of the universe, I found flat Earth. And it's 5 years later, me and you talking.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
think
also on Mark Sargent's last email show too, if you, I mean, you know, I don't typically listen to his email shows, but I did listen to the one he put out the other day or yesterday, I think it was. And like 5 of the emails were people who emailed him because they watched the documentary.
I'm telling you, it will do the job.
Yeah.
For a smart person, when you just introduce the thought to him, if he never heard of it, and he's, you know, he's like coming from inside, from his logic and reasoning. If you just point him the way, and he has no big feelings for the globe, he will go there. So it's just making more noise, which is great. Thanks, globe heads.
yeah, and I also think that they'll realize how much that documentary is false when they start listening. If they start listening to Globebusters, start listening to this, they'll start realizing how full BS some of it is.
Yeah, in other words, it'll attract a certain degree of morbid curiosity.
Will create ripples. That's sure.
Well, at the same time, I'm sure there are people that'll see that documentary and see, you know, oh, look at the Globers are just saying, you know, oh, the flat Earth, they just debunked themselves or whatever. But the flat Earthers aren't going anywhere. You know, it's not like we're hanging up the towel and say, oh, you got us, we're leaving. You know, we're still here. We're still doing this. You know, there are still questions that are unanswered, and I think the people that are curious and honest with themselves will come around to this.
Chocolate, and another thing is that you probably get increase of the people that try to debunk after seeing the documentary. So it's again more noise. Somebody will be like, "Oh, I can debunk this because this is what I've learned in school," and he will make a small YouTube video and just pop it online, and then other people will see it. And it's just a ripple that causes waves and waves that keep on getting bigger and bigger. Because it's in a container, they get reflected back in, and it's just disturbing to see more and more.
Yeah, because most people, even though they're ingrained in this, you know, paradigm, you know, they're not so dogmatic about it, you know. And if you say, like, I've had a lot of success with just speaking to people with common sense, you know, pointing out things that they're aware of physically in their life and that they could relate to, and just pointing that out to them and saying, you're being told this, but this is what you really experience, and how do you really know what you think you know? And in in the past week, I've gotten 2 people to tell me I don't really think I live on a spinning ball anymore. And then I got another one who said, I've been looking into this since you spoke to me 2 days ago. I've been looking into this, and it's insane because I can't really prove to myself that I live on a ball, but I still believe it. But it's weird how it's so hard to find specific things to really point out that I live on a ball. So yeah, I mean, you're always gonna get somebody that gets triggered. You're always gonna get somebody who can't even deal with the conversation. But I think most people, like in my short experience where I am right now, like I've run into a few people that are very open to this, just by hey, it looks flat to me. I've never experienced a curvature, never experienced rotation, so I can
what
only go by.
What I
Yeah, go
find
ahead, I'm done.
Sorry. I
No,
did
no,
it
I'm done.
again. I did it again. Interrupt chocolate. No, but what I'm mostly like a bit weirded out about almost is that I seem to be getting a lot of comments more recently in chat on my show and on my videos where there's actually Globers saying like, yeah, I disagree with you about flat Earth, but I really like what you're doing, and getting all these compliments from Globers like that. That is really weird. Have you guys noticed that as well? That there's like more Globers out there that aren't just straight out trolls.
That's the normal people, the ordinary people.
Hmm?
I think that's just the ordinary people. They're not biased and they don't have a certain side. They're not defending it.
Right.
Just
But
being
they're
honest.
also speaking out now.
Yeah. And as Chocolate said, that there will be always somebody that will get triggered. I think it's very important to, and happily that there is people that are getting triggered because they'll stay triggered for a long time and they will want to discuss it and spread it out with other people. They'll be like, I've spoken to that guy and you won't believe he told me they're this right and blah, blah, blah. And this is, again, more noise.
I'm very good with telling people, like, just don't take the words that I'm telling you, as Bible. Do your own research. Look into this yourself, and you will find the same things that I found, or not find. You know what I mean? Don't take my word for it. It's not like I'm making this up. You can do this research yourself and find it out. And if you're honest with yourself about it, then, I even had one guy, I was talking to him for maybe 20 minutes about this stuff, and he was just like, dude, you're absolutely blowing my mind. I don't even know if I want to look into this. And I told him, dude, I understand. I get it. I don't know, man.
I really enjoyed Owen's Benjamin rant about how he's supposed to debate Eric Dubay, and then he's live on YouTube and asking people for good points that Eric won't take apart in seconds, and he was like really going off about people telling him like inertia. What inertia? What does inertia mean? Like that was just marvelous.
Yeah, because people were just throwing words at him. This word proves everything that you're going against. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but
because remember, he started with the moon landings before anything else. So if these people are going to throw things at him that don't make sense as far as the moon landings, and obviously he's already into the flat Earth thing, so I mean, these things aren't going to make sense to him. He's being honest about it, which he seems to be. I don't know the guy, but I don't know. Who knows?
But it looks like he's coming from a fair point of view. Like when they represent him with the bullshit arguments, his reaction is like honest to the bullshit, to the amount of the bullshit. So it's like What? You know, how? Why? What's that?
So Nathan, you're getting a lot of super chat these days. Lucky bastard. I'm jealous. Although I do get some as well. You're doing
Give it
really good.
give it 3 months, and I'll probably recoup what I lost over the month when I couldn't do anything.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, there are a lot of new people showing up that are giving the show a lot of support. So shout outs to them.
I'm not going to lie, I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Guys, where do you see the show after a year? Where do you see the show going after a year? I think it will be huge.
Maybe I pick the format for its longevity, so it's one of those I don't see any, full stop in the future of the show. But like I say, that's precisely the reason I picked it. I was like, yeah, that could be done indefinitely, a debate format on this subject, because unless one of you on the panel thinks that suddenly tomorrow everyone's going to appreciate that the Earth is obviously and observably flat, I don't think that's going to happen overnight. I mean, it might be the case that 10 years from now the show's redundant because everyone's all well aware of it, in which case I'll have to find a different topic. But until that point, I don't see there's any short-term end for the show. I picked it because it's got a long-term future.
And there's always going to be more globers.
Hmm.
The more people on the flat earth side that are like, yeah, I think we got it now. I think my time here is done. And the globers out there will just see that as another sign like, ooh, there's some room, less competition. Now's our chance. So it's probably can potentially keep on going forever.
Great, that's just what we need, more fight the flat earth.
Goody.
Goody.
Just curious, do you guys know who the youngest flat earther is? Someone who came from the globe indoctrination?
Nope.
Like people who come from the globe Earth, who become figure out that it's not a globe. What's like the youngest age that anyone knows of someone like that?
Well, I mean, I've heard different stories from different people who have said, I teach my kids that, my kids know the Earth's flat, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
something like that.
Yeah, I can understand that because a parent is actually teaching them, but someone who grew up within the entire system and then finally thought, okay, maybe I'll look into it. 'Cause I
But
feel like
younger kids usually that don't have a flat earther parent to teach them, yeah, they're still going to be stuck in the school system. So they got to be very bold and very brave to go there completely by themselves.
yeah, so they'll probably not be looking into it in their 20s. It'll probably be in the 30s or 40s, most likely.
After your studies are done, that's usually when there's some room
Yeah.
for this kind of thing.
Yeah, because the one of the things that I've found just going through rabbit holes and stuff like that is like people who were quote woke. They're usually the only ones in their family members. I mean, which is odd because the people who would think mostly alike would be those who are genetically similar, plus growing up in the same household, siblings especially. But that's usually not the case.
No.
Oh,
Totally
Nope.
disagree.
Not
Totally
even a
disagree.
little
No.
bit. Trust
Family
and believe,
members
me and
will-
my sister are completely the opposite.
Right. Siblings will actually tend to pick contrasts more within the family culture. It's natural phenomena with any subject, political, cosmogonical. Yeah, siblings pick rivalry positions towards one another. They do it naturally. I don't think it has anything to do with genetics at all.
Something for Nathan. Yesterday when I was trying to join the show, and I actually missed the beginning, and when I heard it later on, and I was listening to it, Anthony was making a proposition for the opening, for the beginning, where Nathan will say that all Glovers were dismantled on the show, so we need more, and that thing.
Yeah.
Are you considering like something to be like an invitation part in the opening, or
No, not at
Glover?
all. No, I mean, yeah, Anthony wants the fight, basically. He's just trying to entice the fight. And the way I see it is there's always going to be somebody that wants to challenge what we say. The fact that the old school anti-flat earthers don't necessarily want to come in anymore because they know better doesn't fuss me in the slightest. You know, today has been a lovely low blood pressure day with lots of flat earthers. It's become a flat earth friendly panel. Well, you got to remember that when I started the show, it was completely the opposite. Often I was the only one of 10 panel members that was a flat earther, and it was just nothing but ad hominems, degrading other people, poisoning the well, and then a few fallacies thrown in to prove their globe, and they had the run of the roost. Well, now it's the other way around. Am I going to complain about that? Far from it. But there will always be somebody that just thinks these guys are idiots and I know better. And in the last week or two, it's been people coming in that immediately declare, just to let you know, I am a white coat with a name tag, so you should respect me. You know, that's what we get, because they will think that they know better. That's never going to change.
Yeah, I remember the beginning. I was listening to you from the beginning.
But no, I'm not going to beg them. They'll be warmly welcome back if they're an old school anti-flat earth, you know, whatever you want to call them, globehead. But by the same token, I think on the whole, it'll just be the case that people who are relatively new to the argument, a bit green, and go, really? Because it'll be the case that a few days will elapse. So a good example would be today with Anthony when he started talking about his assertions about what the moon is. Well, if I hadn't put a stop to that, eventually somebody in the audience will come in because they want to challenge that. Well, it may be the case that our arguments in the case of the housekeeping are so watertight that people actually listen to them, not often the case, and then go, no, I haven't got anything to rebut that. And therefore, that's what ends up happening. They don't come in. But like I say, there's going to be people that tune in mid-show, hear a speculative conversation between a few panel members, and they just go, these guys are nutters. Don't they know what insert bullshit here is? I'll go in and tell them. And they come in, and you know that's never going to change, in my opinion. You know, there'll be ebb and flow of more flat earthers talking about what they want to talk about, and then a globehead wanting to come in and assert what's what.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I'll say this, and I want to give props to Eben. If more flat earthers come in here like you, it's going to be problems for the globe heads. Because how long you been doing this? Like
This
2 months or
is
something, you said?
Yeah, I think it's going into 3 months.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to prepare is for debates, because like when looking through this, I just did my research, but now I'm just going into the math, you know, the stuff that they gave out. Okay, looking deep into gravity, and just the numbers, the calculations that they give, and how does it make sense. And most people won't know the equations, like Einstein's field equations, or Newtonian's gravitational constant, and stuff like that. So it's like they will, like, someone just heard, what, you're a flat earther, what? And they go, you know, I had the same conversation, you know, with 2 Mormons. They'll never talk about you know, they'll go into the ad hominem attacks. They'll never talk about the specifics of why do you think the earth is flat. And then I want to go into the details. It's like, give me the evidence that the earth is a globe, but they won't cite anything. And if they do, they just don't know enough of it. And so I tell them exactly what what it is, and they go, well, I didn't know that, but so in part it's just, why does a flat earther know so much more about your globe model than you when you believe that Earth is a globe? So
Exactly. That's something I found out very much when I got into this. That a lot of these guys that come in here get triggered and trying to defend this stuff, they don't really know it as well as they think they do.
yeah.
I love chocolate.
I love chocolate too. Yum, yum, yum.
Another one.
Alrighty then. To be honest, that would have sounded much better coming from Karen B, but hey.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sorry.
And on that very light-hearted note, I think I'll round out this after show by saying, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this after show possible, and of course a massive thank you to all of the audience in the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out nathanoakley.com to keep up to date with the community Flat Earth debate on the Flat Earth Debate Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!